Going, everybody. Bryan Alvarez and Dave Meltzer here, Wrestling Observer Radio. It is November 2nd, 2023. Figure4online.com/WrestlingObserver.com. We got a lot of news to get into here today. Got a busy weekend as well. Crown Jewel is coming up this weekend. Vince McMahon, Ari Emanuel, very likely to be there. And,
well, Vince is there.
Well, he was there. You know, he could go home. He could skip this show.
He's
Probably
not going to skip the show. It's his new home.
Well, it is his new home. That's true.
It is their new
home. I don't
home.
think he's actually living there. Could be wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe he is. But anyway, we got that show coming up this weekend, and we have 7 matches announced. We talked about it Monday. But very quickly, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre for the world title. Rhea Ripley, Nia, Shayna, Zoe, and Raquel for the women's title. Roman Reigns, LA Knight for the Universal title. Rey Mysterio, Logan Paul for the U.S. title. And then we have Cody Rhodes and Damian Priest, John Cena and Solo Sikoa, Io Sky versus Bianca Belair, and Sami Zayn and JD McDonough is the pre-show match. Airs on Saturday morning, and so it will not be going head-to-head with Collision. And we'll be covering it on Saturday night as well. So, busy day this coming Saturday.
Yeah, busy day, that and Power Struggle. So, yeah, on the same day.
That's right, Power Struggle.
Yeah, the lineup looks pretty good. The Drew McIntyre match with Seth Rollins should be really good as far as that goes. And Roman Reigns and LA Knight, they're both really over. So, they've got that going for them, and the match should be good. And women's match will be, the women's 5-way will be interesting because it's going to be kind of unwieldy, but we'll see how it works out. It'll probably be fine. And then Io Sky and Bianca Belair should be very good. And, Cody Rhodes and Damian Priest should be good. But the Seth match with McIntyre on paper is probably the best one of the show.
Well, the Power Struggle show on Saturday has Will Ospreay and Shota Umino in the main event for the IWGP United Kingdom heavyweight title.
And U.S., both. 2 belts.
Yes. And Hiromu versus Taiji Ishimori for the junior title. And we've got Okada Ishii and Tanahashi versus Zack Sabre Jr., Mikey Nichols, and Shane Hayes for the 6-man open-weight tag team titles. Just 5 Guys versus Los Ingobernables. David Finlay versus Tangaloa.
Well, Just 5 Guys in Ingobernables, it's Naito and
Yota Tsuji.
Naito and Yuta Tsuji against
Sonata and
Yuya Uemura and Sonata.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got Jon Moxley and the Great Okan. They're having a match. And Great Okan claims if he wins, he wants a championship match against MJF.
Mm-hmm.
What a match that would be. And then there's the 2023 Super Junior Tag League Finals.
Yes.
Which obviously we don't know what those finals will be yet.
Yeah, well, that's coming up in a couple of hours. And so this is the standings right now. It's the match that's probably going to determine it is it's taking place in Osaka. It's actually going to be over probably by the time most of you listen to it. But listen to this. But Desperado and Master Wato facing Sho and Yoshinobu Kanemaru is the main event, and the winner of that has a real good shot of being the one of the 2 teams. If not, it's possible a rematch. But the other teams alive are Kevin Knight and Kushida, and Francisco Akira and TJP wrestle each other, and the winner of that also could advance. There's a real good shot that Desperado and Wato are advancing to the finals either way, because they're the only team that's 6-2. So even if they lose, they're 6-3. House of Torture, would be 6-3. The winner of the Knight and Kushida and Akira and TJP match, the winner of that will be 6-3. And then there's another match with Drill Maloney and Clark Connors, who are the champions right now. If they win over Rob Eagles and Kosei Fujita, they'll be 6-3. And Titan and Bushi are wrestling Musashi and Yo, and if they win, they'll be 6-3. So there's a million different ways it could go based on tiebreakers and everything like that. But those are the teams that are still alive on the show in Osaka coming up. It's coming up tonight.
Wrestler of the Year, Dave.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You wanted to talk about it.
Yeah. We'll start talking about the awards now. So Wrestler of the Year is the big award, the Flair Thez Award. And, usually this time of the year, you kind of know who's going to win. So it's interesting because I don't think it's. Do you think there's like a favorite?
I think just based on the quality of matches he's had this year, I think there's a very good chance that Will Ospreay's winning.
It's an interesting one. He's certainly a candidate. Normally the winner is someone who's been world champion with a major promotion for most of the year and had good matches. Roman Reigns and been a business mover as well. And Roman Reigns has certainly been a business mover. He's been world champion all year with the biggest promotion, but he hasn't had a lot of matches. His matches have mostly been good, though. So
sure, but I think the thing that hurts him most is that he has had barely any matches this year.
Yeah, no.
You certainly could make a good case that he should win. He's the world champion of the biggest promotion, as you noted. When he shows up, they do numbers every single time. He's the biggest mover of anyone in all of pro wrestling. But he has not had very many matches.
And he's had probably the two most impactful matches of the year, which are the Cody match and probably the Sami Zayn match. As far as like really big. Matches that had a lot of interest, especially the Sami Zayn match for a B pay-per-view. That one really had a lot of interest. Seth Rollins, maybe. You could argue Cody Rhodes was the MVP in WWE this year because unlike Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, even though he didn't win a championship, he was also in the main event at WrestleMania. And he was on all the house shows, and the house show business was way up this year. And, he was probably, certainly for most of the year, he was the biggest house show draw. So he's another one that you could consider. MJF, of course, AEW champion for virtually the entire year. And he's had some great...
He has been for the entire year.
Yeah. And he's had some great matches this year. The Bryan Danielson match, one of the best matches of the year. The four-way was excellent. The Kenny Omega match that we just had was excellent. What was the other ones that he had? Adam Cole match. Well, main evented the biggest, the biggest attended show of the year. And won on that show too. So he's a candidate. Of course, Will Ospreay. Probable winner of most outstanding. I don't think that's going out on a limb saying that one. And had, really an incredible year. I still haven't looked it up, but I think that he may have had more great matches in one year than anyone in history. And if it's not, he's pretty close. I know Kenny Omega and Okada had, around 2017, 2018, they had a lot of incredible matches. Ric Flair in 1989 was another one that you would think of in that category. But Ospreay's just been unreal this year. Those would be the big candidates. I think some people have talked about Mystico. CMLL having, obviously improved their attendance greatly this year. He was the biggest star in CMLL. So you could certainly consider him as well. And, there's always, Kento Miyahara, who's super, super, super underrated, Triple Crown champion for parts of the year, and all kinds of incredible matches this year as well. So I think those would be the strongest candidates. So it's an interesting voting because, normally it usually doesn't go to the best wrestler. It usually goes to the champion who's been put over and drawn. But Roman Reigns' lack of activity will probably affect that one. And so then you go to, as far as drawing, Cody Rhodes, or you can go to Will Ospreay, who has drawn. And Will Ospreay, it was noted to me that Will Ospreay had probably the best match of the year in 4 different companies because probably the best match in New Japan this year was the Omega match. Probably the best match of the year in AEW was the Omega match. Rev Pro's best match of the year was probably, one of Will Ospreay's matches, I would say. It's probably the best one. The Zack Sabre match, probably. And the Impact's best match of the year, without a doubt, was Will Ospreay and Mike Bailey that just happened a couple weeks ago. So I don't know if anyone has ever done that. Perhaps Ric Flair, I guess, when he was touring world champion. Actually, he may have. But, we're going back decades, since there was a real touring old school NWA champion where a guy had the best match of the year in 4 different companies. So it's quite a feat.
Want to wish the best to Eric of the Viking Raiders, who underwent neck fusion surgery and will obviously be out for a while. But that's where he's been, and that's why they've been doing the singles push with Ivar of late.
Yeah. He's out for a long time. He had just C6 and C7 fused. And Ivar also had neck fusion surgery in 2020.
Yes, he did.
He was out for a long time, too, yeah. So he kind of made a joke.
Came back great, so that's good news.
Yeah. Well, a lot of guys have had neck fusion surgery in wrestling. I mean, Edge had it, and he's 50 years old, and he's still going. The list of guys who had it, it's a pretty long list, really. Ciampa, he's working great. He had it. So many others. Sting actually didn't have it. I should take that back. He was supposed to have it. Steve Austin had it, of course. Bob Holly, Chris Benoit. It's a long list of people with neck fusion surgery that came back and came back strong.
Did you watch the Vladimir documentary?
Yeah, I did.
What did you think?
It was it's like 37 minutes. It was a fun thing. I mean, it's very much it was one of those things where WWE does a documentary to put over WWE and how wonderful we are, and that was kind of the nature of the thing of how all the WWE stars love him and everything like that. And we never did get the answer to the big question of how he always got those tickets in the front row.
Yes.
They were like people going like, how did he always get those tickets? And it's never answered. And who is he? And they kind of go through who he is, and his friend Charlie, who's always with him, at least for the last, I don't know, 35, 40 years at all the shows. I mean, he goes back a long time. He goes back to, he's older than me. He goes back to the Superstar Billy Graham days. And,
I remember I started watching in 1987, 88. I don't ever remember there not being a Vladimir.
Vladimir and Charlie were in the front row of pretty much every MSG show and lots of other shows as well. Lots of the WrestleManias. He's only missed one WrestleMania, which was the one where everybody missed, that nobody was there live.
Yeah.
Too. The one, the Drew McIntyre year, and so it kind of talks about that. And WWE is his life. I mean, it is his life. That is what he lives for. They showed his apartment in Manhattan, and it is all WWE merchandise, WWE, stuff that wrestlers gave him, stuff that he's bought, all the action figures. It's just like it's like a freaking WWE, almost like a WWE store, with all the different things. And it just talks about it's interesting, it's heartwarming, it's easy to watch. I liked it a lot. I mean, he's been just a fixture, and they showed the clip like this is the big highlight with it's a 1986 show at the Garden, and they had a Piper's Pit, and it was Piper with Bobby Heenan and Paul Orndorff. Piper was already a babyface at this point, and Heenan and Orndorff were the heels, and they issued a challenge where Harley Race and Paul Orndorff would be a tag team on the next Garden show, and challenged Piper, and Piper asked to who's your partner going to be? And Piper brings Vladimir up, and he goes, who's my partner should be? And he goes, Hulk Hogan. The place all pops, and of course that was in fact the opponent. And they never do answer because you know there's like no chance in the world that they were going to risk anything unless they told, you know what I mean? It's not like at the Garden you're going to bring somebody in there to not have that thing work. And but they acted like it was just he just said the right name or whoever he had said Piper was going to team with. But it was and they show him like in his apartment looking at the big screen, watching that thing over and over again. And so that's kind of, another one of the things. But, yeah, it was just basically says that he saves all his money to buy tickets to wrestling shows and spends all his money on wrestling, and WWE is his life. And they showed when he went to the 2021 WrestleMania in Tampa. And, during that period of 2020, during COVID, he lost his mom, who was 93 years old. And he talks about her a lot in the documentary. And basically his world was his mom and wrestling. And during COVID, he couldn't go to wrestling. And he lost his mom. And he was just heartbroken. I mean, suicidal. And that's not an exaggeration. Tried to commit suicide multiple times. So, it's kind of like him going to WrestleMania, the first show back. And, all the different people there, Jeff Jarrett, Drew McIntyre, Triple H, Stephanie, Kevin Owens, all, just going up to him. And, some like Drew McIntyre was like, ever since I started watching, there you were, always there. And, everybody was really, really nice to him. They gave him a nice present, Triple H and Stephanie. Of course, they were already doing a documentary on him by that point because the documentary started being filmed in 2019. But, named him the Superfan and everything like that. But it's, I don't know why it took so long because most of this stuff was filmed between 2019 and 2021. And here we are, almost 2024. And there was always the talk, when's this thing coming out? Well, it did come out. It was a nice piece, and he was, I don't know him well, but, obviously I bumped into him a couple times when I was in New York over the years. And, always a super nice guy, and everybody, everybody knew him, because he's so recognizable. When he was younger, he was always in the tank top, always flexing and trying to be Hulk Hogan. And he did say, in fact, that he did want to be a wrestler growing up, but it just didn't work out. So he just became a fan who would go, all over the Northeast and for big shows all over the country to see the big shows. That's his life, and he is the super fan.
All right, take us through these ratings.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. AEW tonight, they had to go against the second no-hitter in the history of the World Series was tonight. And it was the deciding game, the end of the World Series, with the, so anyway, it's probably not going to be a good rating tomorrow. And the baseball basically held everything back, as far as the ratings went. For last week, for the entertainment numbers, Raw was first. SmackDown was third, because it was on cable, not on network. Let's see, Dynamite was sixth, and NXT was ninth. NXT last night was 674,000 and 0.20, which was down. But I'll tell you what, I mean, going against the World Series, I think that everybody should be very happy with that number, even though it was down from a week ago. And it was not down that much in 18 to 49. It was down, what was it? It was down 6%, which, again, with the World Series and everything, it held up pretty well. And of course, also, probably as much as the World Series, it was Halloween night. And Halloween night always does a number on wrestling ratings. So they had both going against them, Halloween and the World Series. And they were only down 6.5% in 18 to 49. They were down more in viewers, 14%. But still, I mean, I know no one there considers that anything but a good number. It's very disingenuous, even though they were down. to say that this was anything but a good number. Raw did 1,390,000 viewers, also against the World Series, and an 0.43. And actually, even though they had the World Series and they had the NFL, and it's on paper the toughest competition, the fact is the combination, the Monday World Series game actually had fewer viewers than the playoff game, the baseball playoff game the week before. So, and the football was one of the lowest of the year. It might have even been the lowest of the year for total viewers. And it was well down from the week before. The NFL was down, 18% in viewers and 19% in 18 to 49 from the week before. And the baseball was down as well. So it's actually easier competition. But they did, Raw did the third lowest number in the history of Raw on the USA Network. There were the first two shows of football season against football this year were lower. So it was one of the lowest. But again, very hard competition. And 0.43, I think, against, even with, again, and this was actually, from World Series standpoint, this was the lowest rated by far World Series in history. Last year's World Series, most of the games did over 11 million viewers, and this year they were, 8 million to 9 million. I'm sure, tonight's game may do more as the deciding game and a no-hitter, but it was just a very low-rated series. But still, it's still going to affect.
I think it was only a no-hitter until the 7th.
Yeah, but still.
But during head-to-head with Dynamite, I don't think.
Head-to-head with Dynamite,
yes.
It was a no-hitter, yeah. And let me see, what was the thing? So Raw, one of the things Raw did set a record, though, is the Damian Priest and Sami Zayn match, which did 1,200,000 viewers, was the least watched main event in the history of Raw ever. So that's, whatever. But again, given the competition, it was what it was. They
1,200,000.
Yes, and
I would say that means there's a decent chance next year during football season that they might have a quarter below 1 million.
A 20% drop year to year. I mean, if there's like a super giant football game and a bigger World Series, it's possible, and they do the same show every week for 52 weeks, so it's repetitive. Possible. Yeah. And then Collision on Saturday, 472,000 and 0.13. I mean, if they didn't have Omega and Max in the main event, I would say like 472,000 against the competition they had. And I would consider that actually a good number. But 0.13, not such a great number. And that's the most important number. But they did have Omega and Max, and, it was a very disappointing number, I think. Not whatever, the competition, again, just being so close, so big that it's not. I mean, I wouldn't go in there and go, oh, the sky is falling or anything like that, but there's a lot you could say, perhaps that, there's a lot to that one. Again, probably not enough time to build the story, but it's still, a world title match on TV. Even with that competition, you would really expect more than that. And I mean, everyone pretty much took it as a disappointing number. Now, the match itself, viewership was up pretty big. They
added 100,000 viewers.
Yeah, they added 100,000 viewers for the match, which, again, when you're going,
it actually tells you about the rest of that Collision show.
Yeah, they averaged 0.12 for most of the show, and then the main event, I think, was like an 0.16. So, but, again, the rest of the show, there was nothing else really on the show, and I think that's part of it, too. But, it's AEW did not do good ratings, but it was the World Series, and that's the basic gist of it. But, AEW is, again, it's in a tough situation. It's got to do something to get hot, And I don't really know. It's not an easy answer. I mean, the thing that AEW has to do really is figure out a way to become cool again. Like just the thing, because right now there's so much that is said and written and everything like that makes it seem uncool. A lot of the stuff with, the perception that it's this rich, like the Tony Khan perception with the rich guy who's this, doing such a bad job, which really isn't the case. I mean, the quality of the shows is actually pretty good, although there are things that obviously need improvement. There's no doubt, and there always will be. But and the numbers are down from what they were. I mean, it's certainly not as hot as it was, and they never really did. They did that great, and it's funny because tonight they really pushed the London show, and they really, it was only 2 months ago they had that London show, and it was a high water mark in the history of the company. And it was actually one of the most amazing, business successes in the history of wrestling. I mean, nobody's ever done, other than WWE, which is a much, much larger company, has ever done a show of that magnitude. I mean, New Japan never has, not with a gate that big. I guess if you adjust for inflation, some of the New Japan gates probably were about the same. But still, New Japan had been around for years and years and years, and was an established promotion with much better television, real network television, and had Antonio Inoki. I mean, these guys don't have any Antonio Inokis or anything like that. I mean what was or the promotion versus promotion thing that the Takada and Keiji Muto match. Those were the giant gates at the Tokyo Dome, back in the 90s. And so, I mean, they had that, and they never really, like, when it was over, you kind of hoped or thought that maybe that would lead to some momentum. But, it really was, as big as it was, it didn't really lead to momentum like that. You didn't see ratings increase. You didn't see... I don't know what kind of business deals they were able to do or not able to do for Europe, but nothing's really been announced there that makes it look like they've done, that it's been a major. The tailwind was not great for this one, and as good as it, from a publicity standpoint, that one would have hoped for a show that really was an incredible success. And of course, they announced stuff for the new show. They sent out a press release. Tickets going on sale very soon for next year's Wembley show, which is probably because WWE is about to put tickets on sale for the Berlin show, which is a week later. And I don't think they wanted, they wanted the WWE to get a jump on a European show. Even though the WWE show only has the Berlin, I think that they, probably could put 14,000 in, so it's not like it's going to be, it's not like that they're going to draw more people, but they'll sell out instantly. And AEW, I mean, who knows? It's like, what does the second show at Wembley mean? I mean, I know people who think just the fact that they booked a show in Wembley means it will be an automatic success. I don't know if that's the case. The first show had a lot of things going for it. Most important, that it was the first show. And coming back a year later is very ambitious. So we're going to have another year of people getting mad at, the attendance, and if they do 40,000, people trying to claim it's a failure and things like that. They have to sell out or it's a failure. Garbage like that. But anyway, that those debates will continue again.
Well, we'll get to these shows in a moment. First couple of MMA notes. This Kung Lee lawsuit.
This is actually the biggest story by far, is this Kung Lee lawsuit. We, probably should have opened with it, actually, because it is going to trial on April the 8th, and the Judge Bolwar, wrote today there will be no more continuances. So it's really going to trial on April 8th unless they settle. And... unless there's one more thing that could happen that UFC could do to get the thing. I think there's one more attempt to get the thing thrown out. But based on everything the judge has written, I don't see it being successful. The Court of Appeals, basically, UFC went to the Court of Appeals to try to get the judge's rulings overturned. It was not. And so the judge then ruled the trial and gave a trial date. the amount of money that is at stake, and we're talking over $1 billion here in this case, if the verdict goes the wrong way, and they even can do triple damages based on antitrust. I mean, it's so much money at stake that the risk of going to trial for Endeavor and UFC is very large, which makes but even settling the case, which they almost have to do, because the worst thing that could happen is, they go to trial and lose, because that sets WWE up, the other Endeavor property, for the exact same thing. Now, it's not. I think the antitrust aspect, not a monopoly, but the monopoly, or whatever that word is, basically dominant market share dominance, is pretty similar. And the greatest thing that WWE has is in its defense is the success of AEW, because UFC did not have that when it comes to its competition. Bellator, ONE, PFL, they're just not that successful. So UFC really dominates the marketplace, and it's going to be, again, there's the precedent could be bad, and it probably doesn't help the MLW, their WWE win the MLW case either. Although those are different lawsuits, it's not exactly a direct thing, but. If this case goes positive, there's not a doubt that someone's going to file the same case against WWE, because it is the same case with the same owners, and it's a really it's Endeavor's going to they pretty much have to settle. I think most people felt that they had to settle because of the risk of going before a jury. Especially in this case, because it's so much with all of these fighters, that the feeling is that they all should have earned more money. Whether this is, UFC, basically their claim is all these guys signed contracts, and there's no law on the books that we need to pay, more than 20% or whatever the actual number is. It's well under 20%. But they budgeted under 20% every year. But there's, for the fighters' contracts, just because other sports will pay 50% doesn't mean by law you have to pay 50%. WWE doesn't pay anywhere near 50%. If WWE paid 50% of their revenue, we'd be talking about $675 million to wrestlers' contracts. That would mean basically that on the main roster, your average salary would be $6 million plus. That isn't the case. I mean, so I mean, if you look at it, if you look at it that way, the WWE would be similar. Now, it's not sport, so you can make an argument that, well, since it's not sport, it shouldn't be categorized the same, but they are almost identical businesses. So it's how this thing goes down is a giant story. It's going to cost, unless they prevail, unless they go to trial and win, and I suppose that's possible. This is going to cost Endeavor a lot of money, and 9-year lawsuit coming up on 10 years, and it's actually we're at the home stretch. After all this time, I know people have been asking me like. What does this mean for the MLW suit? And I always said, I don't even think it means anything, because I figured the MLW suit would probably go to trial before this one. But the MLW suit's probably not going to trial till 2025. So this one will be going to trial first. So there will, if there is some precedents that matter, and some of them will matter, yeah. But that's why, that's, again, probably why they'll settle.
And Ngannou and Fury numbers.
Yeah, I'll have the numbers tomorrow, but I did hear they were terrible. I don't have the exact numbers, but like way below an AEW pay-per-view. Probably around the same as a WWE number, believe it or not. But But yeah,
this being a double WWE number, the people that actually buy the shows on pay-per-view and not Peacock.
Yeah,
which
yeah,
are
nothing
very, very low.
10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be more than that because of streaming, but television numbers are probably, may not be far off of that. I'll have them tomorrow, but the television, but the television numbers are going to be, in this one, it's not like you can stream it for $5 like for WWE. I mean, this one, it's like, yeah, you can get it on ESPN Plus, but that's no different from, AEW where you can get on Bleacher Report or, any of these boxing shows where you would have streaming component and you had the television component. But the numbers are nothing close to like what Diaz and Jake Paul did, for example. Nothing close to, obviously nothing close to the Charlo fight with Canelo Alvarez. I mean, that actually did very well. But this looks, I mean, even I never felt that the pay-per-view numbers would be big. I didn't feel any buzz, even as historical as the fight was in its own weird way when you had the champion, from each sport against each other, which, at one point, like if you had this, like I said, if you'd had this fight 10 years ago, the heavyweight champion in boxing against the heavyweight champion in UFC going against each other 10 years ago, or 15 years ago in particular, the numbers would be, through the roof. It'd be gigantic. But people have seen so much of this. And, it's still historic because of how the fight went. But from a pay-per-view standpoint, unless the late buys come in based on the fact that it was historic, the numbers lower than they're very, very, appear to be very, very low. Like I said, in the issue, I'll have the exact numbers, but from what I understood, the numbers were not doing not well at all.
And Derek Lewis.
Do you hear about Derek Lewis?
No, what happened?
Oh, he got arrested like a week ago, I think October 25th, for driving in his Lamborghini 136 miles an hour.
136 miles an hour?
But zoomed in and out of lanes at 136 miles an hour and passed a police car while doing this. So he was arrested. He was taken in, charged with, some minor misdemeanor speeding type of stuff.
Excuse me, a minor misdemeanor?
Yes.
Okay, 136 miles an hour weaving in and out of traffic is not a minor misdemeanor traffic infraction. That should be a...
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, that's at the very least reckless. It's reckless driving.
Don't you think more than reckless?
That's not careful driving.
More than reckless. Endangering people.
At the very least, it's reckless driving.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's a misdemeanor charge, and he was let out on... God, I don't remember the number, but it was like, $1,000 bond or something. I think it was $1,000 bond. But he's fighting Saturday night in Sao Paulo, Brazil, against Gelton Almeida. That does not affect the fight at all. He just happened to be, arrested 10 days before the fight. So there you go.
All right, we got two shows to talk about here. Dynamite and the second night of Halloween Havoc. And the Dynamite show at least had the big angle where at the end of the show, Switchblade pinned MJF clean in the middle of the ring.
Pretty clean. Yeah, well, distraction.
It was totally clean.
Yeah.
I mean, it was distraction by a person in the match. When you're distracted by people in a tag team match that are in the match and then you get pinned, that's clean.
Yeah.
So he beat him and left with the belt. So, I'm not sure... Got a couple people here thinking that Jay White might win at the pay-per-view, and I'm thinking highly unlikely at this point.
I don't think so.
Highly unlikely.
I would be surprised.
Yes. But he did team with the Acclaimed, and it was actually a show-long storyline. It opened up with Renee asking who he was going to team with, and he said he had a whole list of people on the roster. He was sure he could find 3 guys that weren't assholes, and he went to call Adam Cole, who was there on a video chat. And Cole said, I think you really should consider Samoa Joe. And Mox said, man, last time we were in the ring together, that guy almost broke my neck. But I'll think about it. And he left. And then Roddy and the crew showed up. And Roddy said to Cole, are we really pretending MJF is that guy in the devil mask? And Cole rolled his eyes and hung up on them, at which point the devil flashed onto the screen. Mm-hmm. Don't think the devil's MJF.
Who's it going to be?
I don't know. I don't know who it's going to be, but I know who I think it's going to be.
Adam Cole?
No.
No.
I mean, it could be, but he's not going to be back, I don't think, for a long time.
Yeah.
I think they've got to reveal the devil sooner rather than later. Mm. Then we had Orange Cassidy and Claudio for the international title, and this was a very good match. And Claudio...
There's some really cool spots in this match.
Well, these two guys both worked Chikara.
Years and years ago, yeah.
And they said they'd never had a match together, which is kind of amazing when you think how long they were in Chikara together. But that was like Claudio's deal, was he would take these little guys, and he would be a great base, and they'd fly all over the place, and he'd be the powerhouse. And that's exactly what this was. And they had like multi-revolution head scissors, and, eventually Orange countered the pop-up uppercut into a Hurricane Rana and pinned him.
That was a really cool finish.
It was a very, very good match.
Yeah.
And then Moxley's music hits. And this poor guy, by the way, we'll get to that. His music hits. He comes through the crowd. Orange hits the ring to go after him, and Moxley beat the ever-loving hell out of this guy. And a bunch of dudes tried to hit the ring to make the save, but he and Claudio beat their asses. And finally, Claudio had to pull him off. And Mox did a promo later, and he basically said, Phoenix took advantage of me, pinned me for 3 seconds. And then you ran in and you just stole my thunder and you took the belt in a match that I was supposed to be in. And he says, I'm going to take you at the pay-per-view. I'm going to kill you with my bare hands. So it's Orange Cassidy and Moxley at the pay-per-view.
Yeah, at Full Gear.
Yeah. And he mentioned that he was not doing well. And I don't know if this is why, but he was just in where was he? Where was he this weekend? He was in Europe.
He worked Be Cool, which I heard was a good match, and he worked with Trent Seven in.
That actually sounds like a really good match.
Yeah, I actually heard the Be Cool match was the better of the two.
Really?
And then, one was Dublin National Stadium, which is the first time he's ever worked there. He was supposed to work there a couple of times, or I think at least once, and he was pulled. And then there might have been another one where he was injured, but he at least once. And then the other one was, they were both for OTT. And then the other one was I forget the city, but it was in the UK as well.
Well, regardless, he was in the UK. He flew all the way back to do a run-in.
Before everyone gets mad at me, I am well aware that Ireland is not the UK, so that Dublin is not the UK, but it's the area.
He was overseas. He flew all the way back to do a run-in. And then he has to fly all the way back to Japan. That's where he's going because he's
He's going to be in Japan. He's going to be in Japan on Saturday.
Yeah, which would be Friday our time. So he basically, what a travel schedule.
Well, it's all those Raw guys had it worse.
That's true. There were actually several of them that had it worse.
Yeah, because the Abu Dhabi flight I think is worse than is longer than a Japan flight. Let's see, he was in. They were in Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville to Japan's probably, what would I figure, 13, 14 hours?
Yeah.
And if there's a connecting flight, it could be a lot longer. Yeah, that's a long-ass flight.
We had MJF knocking on Jericho's door. He asked if Kenny was in there, and Jericho just slammed the door on him. So then Wardlow rushes in. He slams MJF against the wall. He says, you took everything from me. I'm going to take everything from you when you least expect it. He leaves, and then MJF storms off. He runs into the Acclaimed. Caster asks him to team with him, but Max storms off.
Man, I didn't think about this. Got to fly 14 hours for a match with the Great O'Khan. It's not like he's flying 14 hours for a match with, like,
yeah, but you
Okada.
Know what? You know what?
What?
The best thing the Great O'Khan does is amateur shoot-style stuff.
Yes.
And that's right up Moxley's alley. So I actually think they're going to have a good match, and he's going to have fun. I don't think they're going to go out there and try and do like a pro wrestling match. But we'll see. So then we had the Young Bucks and Hangman versus the Gates of Agony.
It may set up, I think the match is to set up him and Will, right?
I think so, yeah.
I mean, that was the, from watching the original angle in England, at the Royal Quest show, that's certainly how it felt that they were building to Moxley and Will Ospreay at the Tokyo Dome. So we'll see if that's where they go.
So then we had the most absolutely baffling thing. So I did Observer Live at 3 o'clock Eastern today, and I ran down the card for the show, and there was no mention of the Young Bucks and Hangman versus the Gates of Agony for the Ring of Honor.
I didn't know anything about that until right before the show started.
They announced this match on Twitter at 5:30 Eastern.
Yeah.
The show, I didn't even know this match was happening. All of a sudden, out come the Young Bucks and Hangman. And they announced it's a Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship match.
I knew by the time it was on, I knew that they were doing the match.
Well, I didn't.
Yeah.
And these guys come out for a Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship match. They have not even a lot of time. And then Hangman, he's going to go for the buckshot. And Swerve comes out on the ramp. And Swerve comes out and he says, "Hey, last week I was at your house, Hangman." And it suddenly occurred to me, that's the follow-up?
Yeah.
Swerve broke into that guy's house and cut a promo on his infant child.
Yep.
Dropped a shirt in there. And the follow-up was that Hangman just went to work to have a 6-man tag.
Yeah.
So Nada comes out, and then I'm baffled. I'm like, what? So Hangman runs after him, and they just run backstage. And the Bucks are left alone in the ring. And the Gates of Agony triple 3-on-2, and they
basically squash him.
They pinned Nick, and they won the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles.
Yeah.
I thought, what? And then they cut backstage, and Hangman and Swerve.
Before they do that, they go in there and they're, hitting the post with chairs.
Well, no, first they cut to the back, they show the brawl, and then they go back to ringside, and Matt's flipping out, and he's throwing things around.
Yeah, he's throwing a temper tantrum.
I could not believe this.
Which I guess is a heel turn. The people booed
they're
him
definitely
for it.
Turning heel from the segment later.
Yeah.
But I just absolutely could not believe that we had essentially an unannounced match.
So they're turning heel, so that means that they're not going to go for the tag team titles, or they could do a heel versus heel match.
I don't know. I mean, it may be a slow build heel turn, but when I saw the segment they did later, it seems to me they're turning heel. I don't know that for sure.
I got the impression from watching the show that it was going to be Jericho and Omega against the Young Bucks at Full Gear.
It could be. We could be doing it there. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the impression that I got. They didn't announce it or anything. So everything is just weird.
So we had Tony with Adam Copeland, and he did a promo about how he respects Sting and Darby. And then Christian's music hits, and he comes out, and he talks about how Adam has neck problems and advised him to back down. Otherwise, he was going to break his neck, leave him in a wheelchair the rest of his life. Truly. He says, I don't think this is sinking in. Luchasaurus, Nick, go give him a preview of what's going to happen at the pay-per-view. So Edge lays out Nick and Luchasaurus, but then Christian hits the ring. He's a distraction. Luchasaurus hits the rabbit lariat. Nick hits the cutter. They go to Concerto Adam, but Sting's music hits. Him and Darby hit the ring. And, man, Darby's running wild. He's got no sling on, so I guess maybe he doesn't have a fractured shoulder.
Darby's wrestling Saturday against Lance Archer.
Apparently he's all right. So
how is that possible?
I don't know. But,
I saw that fall he took. That was only I don't know.
It's a durable dude. So Edge speared Christian, grabbed the mic, said he's going to beat his ass. And so, yes, we have a 6-man official at Full Gear.
Well, that was expected that they were going to end up with that 6-man. So, and probably build to Edge and, or Adam Copeland and Christian.
So then they had announced that Tony Khan had a big announcement, and he appears on screen and says, Wembley was one of the greatest shows anyone ever seen. It's November 1st. It's the beginning of the holiday season, except my parents who've had a Christmas tree up since July. And a great stocking stuffer.
Why would that be?
Well, some people really like Christmas. I'm sure Foley's had his up since probably WrestleMania.
Okay.
So he says, Wembley tickets are going on sale December 1st, and you can sign up at Ticketmaster if you want to get a jump on things.
But you can get the pre-sale before then.
Yes, that's the big announcement.
Yeah, some people didn't like that as a big announcement.
Well, they've gone to the well.
I know. I thought it'd be something else, but I didn't think the Dralistico signing would have qualified either. Although Dralistico actually was at one point a pretty damn big star about 3 or 4 years ago, but that wasn't going to be it either.
And then we had Tony Khan, the Jericho and Omega versus Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Ange with Don Callis on commentary. They're the Golden Jets. They are now 3-0. Jericho hit the Judas effect on Parker. So this is one of those pro wrestling things. It's not just AEW, it's every promotion. It's so stupid. If you get in the ring with a weapon, it is only disqualification if you actually hit the person. Angelo Parker gets in the ring with his baseball bat.
He's got the bat in the ring.
He swung this bat like he was playing in the World Series. And luckily Jericho ducked, or he'd be, his head would be in Japan right now. But the ref didn't care. He didn't actually hit him. So then Jericho hit the Judas effect and got the pin. And then Don and the family start heading to the ring. And Don and Takeshita destroy Kenny. Or Don says Takeshita destroyed Kenny. Hobbs broke Jericho in half, but they're both back. Maybe we've got to take it up a notch. He wants a street fight in the Dynamite in Ontario, California. And Jericho and Kenny accept, and they say, we got Kota Ibushi there as well. And then Don says, well, that's cool, but you're still a man short. And so Jericho says, well, I saw Hobbs, and I knew I needed someone even bigger than him. And Don says, nobody is bigger than Will Hobbs. Well, out comes Paul White, who is, in fact, bigger than Will Hobbs. And so we've got an 8-man coming up.
I heard that when Paul White was back in OVW just a couple weeks ago, and, I think guest ring announcer or something like that, made a guest appearance, and I heard that his movement was not good. And, he stood there. And
he was very crooked.
Yeah, big braces on his knee.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, it's a big guy, and he's 51 years old, and he's had, all kinds of knee problems and other problems. But, again, he's probably only has to come in for look who he's teaming with. He's probably only have to come in for, short spurts and everything. But, he did throw the one punch, but that was it. But he was not moving.
And we had the Bucks meeting with Kenny and Jericho. And Matt says, not to be over dramatic, what was the point of the Elite getting back together if none of us have each other's backs? And who let this prick Jericho into the locker room? Remember what this guy did to our father? I do. And he said, and Jericho goes, you guys weren't good enough tonight. Don't yell at me. And Kenny said, Chris is the enemy of an enemy. And Matt said, listen, just Jericho's exactly like Don. He's going to screw you in the end. And they storm off. So clearly there's I think a split coming here.
Oh, yeah.
Hikaru Shida and Willow Nightingale, AEW Women's title. Not a lot of heat early, but they worked hard. They had a lot of near falls. They kicked out of a lot of stuff, and they got the crowd into it. Shida finally hit the spinning knee, got the pin, and then Toni Storm ran out to steal the thunder again. But Shida ran up, hit the running knee on the stage, chased her backstage. Lights go out, they come back on. Julia Hart's in the ring staring at Willow. So she wants a handshake. Willow's not going to give it to her. So Sky Blue hits the ring. They tease that Sky is going to turn on Willow, but instead, she allegedly blew mist at Julia, but she pretty much completely missed her. So apparently, at this point at least, Sky is still a babyface with Willow.
Mm-hmm.
And the Acclaimed met with MJF.
Well, yeah. So, anyway.
Yes?
I guess that in the match in 2 weeks, it's going to be with an 8-man. I guess the fourth person is going to be Sammy Guevara.
Is that what it's going to be?
Most likely, unless he's not cleared, and then they'll probably have to get somebody else. Yeah.
So then we had the Acclaim meeting with MJF, and Caster had a trash bag, and he said, you can team with us. All you have to do is scissor and wear what's in this bag. And MJF looked in the bag, and he's like, oh, man, I'm out of here. So he goes, I got one other group I can ask. And so he rounds the corner, and there is Jeff Jarrett's crew, and they're all laughing. And MJF looks at them, and then he sadly looks down at the trash bag. So then we had Switchblade and the crew come down to the ring, and then the Acclaimed music hits, and they come out, and they do the rap, and then MJF's music hits, and he comes out in pink MJF gear, and he's not super high on the idea. Caster wants a high five. MJF refuses to give it to him. So the whole story of the match is that MJF wants Jay White, and Jay White is avoiding MJF. He will not get in the ring with him. He runs from him. He wants nothing to do with him. They get the heat on Caster. He finally gives a hot tag to MJF. He's making his big comeback. The heels try 310 to Yuma. MJF avoids it. He hits the kangaroo kick. The place goes crazy. The guys bump outside. He's screaming at him, and he turns around right into the Blade Runner, and he is pinned. So after the match, Jay gets the belt. He's going to waffle him, and he goes to hit the belt shot, and Caster shoves him out of the way and takes the bullet. And man, you watch this bump that he took. His head bounced off the mat on this bump. It looked brutal. And then the heels leave, and Caster from his back wants the scissor. MJF doesn't want to do it. So Daddy Ass gets in his face, and he screams at him, "After all that Max Caster's done for you, you owe this guy." So MJF goes to the corner. They do the big scissor, gets the big pop, and the show goes off the air. So got a couple of weeks left before Full Gear, but they're selling that main event big. MJF and Jay White.
They need to.
Yep. So that was the show. Then we had the Halloween Havoc Night 2, which opened up with the Creeds against Angel and Umberto in a tables, ladders, and scares match.
Oh, God. Man,
can you imagine getting signed and going up to the main roster and getting a brand new contract, and then the next day you go down to developmental and kill yourself in a ladder match?
Man, that Julius Creed, that one bump he took with the ladder scraping his skin off. Man.
Brutal.
And it wasn't like that was the only big bump he took either.
No. And this was exactly what we talked about Monday. It's like these guys had, a week or two to go over this match, work it out, and they did so many crazy spots in this match. And finally, they hit the Brutus ball on Carrillo through a table, double pin, through 1, 2, 3. Yep.
Through two tables.
And
but
so, off they go.
Julius went through the one table. Brutus went through a table. I mean, they were all scraped up, but Julius the worst of all of them from going through the table.
Oh,
and, yeah.
We had Joe Gacy promo. I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but I guess they're going to repackage him or something. And then they were supposed to have Tiffany Stratton and Fallon Henley, but Tiffany attacked her before the opening bell, posted her over and over, put her in a figure 4 around the post, and we never got the match. They said that Fallon was day by day. So I presume somebody was hurt. I don't have that confirmed. But that was a big announced match that they just totally did not do. So I don't know who was hurt or how.
I got the impression that they'll do it in a week or two.
Yeah. So probably some minor injury or something. Or maybe they thought Tiffany would be cleared, but she wasn't yet. So I don't know. We had a show-long storyline with Noam Dar and Metaphor going into the haunted house to get the cup.
The annual haunted house angle. They do this every year.
So
it's another one of those angles that I don't know that we really needed every single year.
I don't think we need it, but if you're going to do it, at least they had Metaphor because they're a comedy group. But long story short, at the end, the only one living is Noam Dar, and he agrees to give Tozawa a cup match next week.
Even though Tozawa lost every match in the tournament.
Yeah. Noam he's surrounded by zombies. He's scared for his life. He's about to be eaten. And Tozawa says he wants a cup match. And all of a sudden, Noam Dar just goes, "You didn't get any points."
Yeah.
And then he was eaten. Nathan Frazier, Dominic Mysterio.
Nathan Frazier's great.
He is great. And what was interesting here is Rhea tried to throw the belt into Dominic, but it just totally missed. And she's yelling at him. And then Frazier goes up top, and Dom just shoves him off into a table, throws him in the ring, frog splashed him. He pinned him clean.
Yeah.
No interference, nothing. He beat him clean in the middle of the ring to retain the title. And then Wes Lee made his big return, and he laid out Dom. And looks like Wes Lee and Dominic for the North American title is the next big show, whenever that's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
We had JC and Andre Chase backstage, and
that's the one in is it early December?
I
it's a
believe
couple weeks.
so.
It's not that far away. They didn't give the date. They didn't talk about the date so much, but it's already been talked. The date's already been advertised and everything.
JC met with Andre Chase and said that you owe us, and he didn't quite know what that meant. But Duke said, "Don't worry about it. You'll get your." Actually, no, it was Tony D and Stacks said you owe us. JC did make it clear, you should have our back here tonight after what we did for you guys. So you owe us, says Stacks. Duke says, don't worry about it. You'll get your tag title rematch. And Tony says, that too. So it looks like they're out to kill Chase U. Then we head back to the haunted house. More from there. Braun Breaker and Mr. Stone. So, Mr. Stone, obviously, longtime wrestler. He's in great shape. But in NXT, he is a manager. And so this was a wrestler versus manager match. Mr. Stone got one punch in, and then he got killed, speared, and pinned. And then, yes, Braun went to crush his skull, but Von Wagner's music hit. He lurched to the ring. He chokeslammed Braun on the steps. Braun ran off, and they did a segment later where Von wants a match with Braun next week.
Yep, they're going to match next week.
Mr. Stone says, I can't sign that. You're not ready. And Von screaming at him that I got to do this. I got to end this. And he screams so loud that he all of a sudden grabs his head. And at that point, Mr. Stone should know this guy's really not okay. But instead he goes, I'll make the match. So it's on for next week. Scripts promo without the mud. They're coming after the Brawling Brutes.
Mm-hmm.
JC Jane and Thea Hale versus Piper and Chelsea. So it was interesting because on the main roster, it's like Chelsea's incompetent. She can't do anything. Piper does all the work. But here, Chelsea actually worked a match. And there was heat, and there was a comeback, and they didn't position her as just totally incompetent. So Andre is outside, and JC wants to grab the title belt to cheat. But Andre takes the belt away and says, you're winning. You don't need to cheat. And so then she turns around. Chelsea hits her with the Unprettier. Chelsea pins her. And it was a distraction finish, but it plays into the story. So I was actually fine with what they did here. Lexis King promo. The key here is he said, just wait and see what I'll do next or what I have done. So apparently he has done something, which I guess could be attack Trick Williams. We still don't know who did that.
Yeah.
Lola Vice, Kalani Jordan breakout tournament finals.
This match was better than I expected it to be.
Yeah, this was fine. It's probably the two best women in the tournament. And, they
Kalani Jordan is going to be pretty good.
I think they're both going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
So crowd was behind both of them, but they popped big. Lola won, hit her big kick after Kalani missed the split-legged moonsault. There was distraction by Elektra Lopez. So Lola wins, and she will get a guaranteed title shot against Lyra at some point. Then the main event was Ilya Dragunov and Carmelo Hayes for the NXT title. And this was not as good as the match they had at the pay-per-view, but this was a damn good match.
It's still a good match, yeah.
Yeah, this Ilya, man, and Carmelo is just like, he's willing to take it all, and they beat the hell out of each other, and there was great selling, and like a DDT on the apron that Ilya just took right on his head and then fell outside.
Bleeding from the mouth.
Yeah, Carmelo was bleeding from the mouth.
They both were.
Yeah, H-bomb off the barricade through the announce table. And they're just doing near fall. And finally, Carmelo hits a code breaker after Ilya came off with a middle rope H-bomb attempt. He goes up top for the leg drop, his finish, but Trick's music hits, and he comes out on the ramp. Carmelo's distracted. Ilya hits his superplex, hits the torpedo, gets the pin. So the match is over, and Trick gets in the ring, and he's very upset. And he grabs Carmelo and he yanks him to his feet, and they go face-to-face, and Trick is pissed off. But before we can find out what happened, they cut backstage, and Baron Corbin is beating up Ilya. So they ended on a cliffhanger. We have to find out next week Is Trick going to say that Carmelo attacked him? Does he not know who attacked him? We still don't know the answer, but thought it was a good cliffhanger, great main event, and overall pretty good show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first and last match were very good, yeah.
All right, you have these Rampage spoilers.
Yes, I do. They had a great match with Penta Commander and Vikingo had a match and said the awesome spots, the crowd loved it. Penta pinned Vikingo. So that would theoretically set up Penta challenging Vikingo for the AAA Mega Championship at some point. Sky Blue beat Marina Shafir, and the crowd kind of got tired of it and started doing LA Knight, chance, and Sky Blue won clean. Trent Beretta and Daniel Garcia had a match, and Garcia won with a crossface submission, and then Garcia challenged MJF for a championship match. So we got another person in the mix.
Dear Lord, how many guys got challenging here?
Well, the world champion, everyone should want it one. And then the Guns beat Christopher Daniels and Matt Sydal. Austin pinned Sydal, and the Guns cut a promo on MJF saying they're going to win the tag titles. Of course, they got that handicap match. And they were beating up Daniels. The Acclaimed made the save. No MJF. Max Caster told everyone to tune in on Collision tomorrow for 69 Day, because it's the 69th day of their reign. So
that's right, yeah.
And then that was pretty much it. Tony Khan said it was Billy Gunn's 60th birthday. And he didn't say a number, he just said it was his birthday, but it was his 60th birthday. And that was basically it. And they also noted that there were 3 kids in the front row who also had birthdays. Tony Khan brought them in the ring, and they sang happy birthday to them, and then the kids got scissored by the Acclaimed. So
wow,
that's what happened.
All right, everybody. On that note, we're going to wrap it up for today. The New Observer is up on the front page, the back issue as well. And Dave and I were up Monday after Raw talking all of that. And we're going to be back this Saturday after the WWE pay-per-view and the New Japan show. We'll have a lot to talk about that. And Collision. It's going to be a very busy night. And that's it. We'll talk to you again after a while.